Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to MTG Traders. My name is Taryn, and I've got something super special for you guys today. This is Aggro Mill. So it's been kind of like a few months since I've done an actual mill deck on the channel, and that's because there hasn't really been that many cards in the format that really can support a mill deck right now, like a straight up Simic mill, or a mono blue mill, or even a blue-black mill. But here, I think we actually might have enough pieces to make a super ultra budget deck work that's mill. But of course, before we get into it, guys, make sure to like the video if you like it. It really does help us out on the channel, really does help keep the channel growing and help keep the content flowing. But without further ado, guys, let's get right into it. The key card in the deck here is Navigator's Ruin. This is a card that was printed in Ixalan, and we actually have pieces from Rivals of Ixalan that makes this so much better. This is a 3-mana enchantment with Raid. At the beginning of your end step, if you attack with a creature this turn, target opponent puts the top 4 cards of his or her library into his or her graveyard. So that's fantastic for us, and we're going to combine this enchantment with another enchantment from Hour of Devastation. This is Fraying Sanity. This is a 3-of here. It's a 3-mana enchantment or a curse enchant player. At the beginning of each end step, enchanted player puts the top X cards of his or her library into the graveyard, where X is the number of cards put into that graveyard from anywhere this turn. So when the end step does happen, we have the activation of both of these cards at the same time. So we're going to make sure we stack to where Navigator Ruin happens first, and then of course Fraying Sanity happens second on the stack, meaning that we're actually milling our opponent for 8 cards instead of just the initial 4. Now, while this isn't necessarily a very fast way to mill somebody out, it is a fun way to do it, and that's why we're going to go over it here. So the thing we actually need to trigger here is Raid for Navigator's Ruin, and to do that we need creatures attacking out, and not only that, we need creatures that are attacking out that cannot be killed very easily. So one of the creatures that's just plain mill that's just very good for us is actually just Minister of Inquiries, so fantastic mill card for us. It's a 1-mana 1/2 Vidalcan Advisor. When it enters the battlefield, we get 2 energy. We can pay 1 energy and tap it. Target player puts the top 3 cards of his or her library into his or her graveyard. And of course, if we have the Fraying Sanity, that's 6 cards instead of 3. So this is really the only straight up mill card we have in the deck, but it's a decent creature because it can block a lot of 1/1 tokens, and that's very important right now in the Rivals Ixalan standard format. But besides that, we have other cards to help trigger the raid mechanic from Navigator's Ruin, and that is Mistcloak Herald here. It's a 4-of 1 blue mana 1/1. Mistcloak Herald can't be blocked, so this means it's going to be hitting in for damage, and it's also going to be able to trigger raid without having to deal with any kind of opponent's creature on their side of the field. So it's going to be coming in really hard and fast. An opponent is hopefully not going to have any kind of removal spell like a Lightning Bolt, a Shock, a Fatal Push, things like that to go against this on turn 2. And going along with more unblockable themes here, we also have Slitherblade. This is a 4-of 1 blue mana 1/2 Naga Rogue. Slitherblade can't be blocked, so we have 8 creatures here that can't be blocked right out of the gate. That is only 1 mana, so we really want to go wide. We want to kind of swing out with all of our can't be blocked creatures. We can actually win the game by just having can't be blocked creatures hit the battlefield really quickly. That's a way that this deck can actually win the game, which is awesome. So we kind of have a secondary win condition with the mill, as well as being a great win condition with just hitting our opponent to the face, which is great. And next up here, moving to the 2-mana slot, we have Daring Saboteur. This is also a conditional kind of unblockable creature. This is a 2-mana 1/2 human pirate with 3 mana. Daring Saboteur can't be blocked this turn, so we have to pay 3 mana for this to make it unblockable, which is nice, but that means it is conditional. So whenever Daring Saboteur deals combat damage to a player, you may draw a card if you do discard a card. So if we're getting into a lot of mana in the mid to late game, we want to make sure we have Daring Saboteur on the battlefield, getting in 2 points of damage, making us draw a card and making us also discard a card, and of course triggering that Navigator's Ruin raid. And moving up from Daring Saboteur, though, we have Slippery Scoundrel. This is a card from Rivals of Ixalan, and I feel like this is the main card that makes this entire deck work. It's a 3-mana 2/2 human pirate with Ascend, and if you control 10 or more permanents, you get the City's Blessing for the rest of the game. As long as you have the City's Blessing, Slippery Scoundrel has hexproof and can't be blocked. So the hexproof there is incredibly important. Not only that, we have the can't be blocked triggers here, so we also can trigger raid with this very easily once we have the Ascend mechanic, and we have lots of enchantments and land on the battlefield, as well as a lot of really low to the ground creatures too. So we'll be able to hopefully get a City's Blessing as soon as Slippery Scoundrel hits the battlefield on turn 4 or 5 for us. Keep in mind, these are all unblockable creatures as well, so we want to make sure that they're getting in for damage, but they're also kind of going to be able to win with that too, since our opponent only has 20 points of life as well. But that's all the creatures in the deck here. Let's move on to some spells. We have 4 Winds of Rebuke. This is another kind of pseudo removal spell as well as a mill spell here. It is a 2-mana instant. Return target non-land permanent to its owner's hand, so that's going to be like, a God Pharaoh's Gift or a Planeswalker planeswalker, something like that that's really annoying that we don't want to deal with, each player puts the top 2 cards of his or her library into his or her graveyard. So very, very good for us, as well as being able to mill them for 2. And if we have the Fraying Sanity on the battlefield, that's actually milling them for 4. Very awesome. Next up here, because we have the Minister of Inquiries, we can also play Confiscation Coup fairly regularly in this deck too. This is a 5 mana, 2 of sorcery. Choose target artifact or creature, you get 4 energy. Then you may pay any amount of energy equal to that permanent's converted mana cost. If you do, gain control of it. So we can use this to ramp our energy if we have a lot of Minister of Inquiries on the battlefield to mill, or we can save the energy from a dead Minister of Inquiries. Say I got Fatal Pushed on turn 2 or something like that. We can use Confiscation Coup in the mid to late game to grab a Scarab God, grab a Torrential Gearhulk, or even grab an artifact like a Heart of Kirin or even a God Pharaoh's Gift. Something like that is awesome for our board state. And the last regular spell in the deck here for us is a 1 of River's Rebuke. This is a great card against a lot of like go wide strategies, the token based strategies, things like that, hidden stockpiles, Legion's Landing, things like that. It's a 6 mana sorcery. We return all non-land permanents target player controls to their owner's hand. So kind of gives us a free turn, basically, being able to get in for attacks. Obviously, most of our creatures, or all of our creatures rather, are unblockable, so that's not really the reason we're playing this. We're playing this to make sure that we have like another free turn to either mill our opponent down with Navigator's Ruin, or just kind of get in for extra attacks without having a big swing back against us. And the other enchantment in the deck, besides the Navigator's Ruin and Fraying Sanity, we have a 3 of Curious Obsession. So we actually want to get through our deck fairly quickly, and Curious Obsession is going to help us do that. It's a 1 blue enchantment aura, enchant creature. Enchanted creature gets +1/+1 and has, whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player, you may draw a card. At the beginning of your end step, if you did an attack with a creature this turn, sacrifice Curious Obsession. So the thing here to keep in mind with Curious Obsession is, do not play it on a creature that cannot attack that turn, or that you don't have a creature on the field that can't attack that turn. Because if you do play Curious Obsession and don't attack, it automatically gets sacrificed, and that's no bueno. We don't want to do that. We want to make sure that Curious Obsession is on a creature that can attack out that turn, be unblockable, and draw us an extra card. It's just great. Another great thing to keep in mind with Curious Obsession here is we have a great like kind of pairing with Daring Saboteur and Curious Obsession. We can draw 2 cards and discard 1 card, giving us some great filter options throughout the match. So that is it for spells and creatures in the deck. Let's go over lands really quickly. We have quite a bit of a shakeup here. It's all blue, but of course we have cards like Aether Hub here, giving us some extra energy, kind of feeding into our Minister of Inquiries as well as our Confiscation Coup. It's a Aether Hub that enters the battlefield. It gives us 1 energy. We can tap for colorless if we need to, or we can pay 1 energy and add any mana of any color to our mana pool. So we can use this for blue mana if we need to. More often than not, it's just going to be a card that's going to be a colorless land coming in, giving us some energy, and that's fine. Next up here for us, we have 4 Ipnu Rivulet. This is another kind of mill card for us. This is a card that can tap for colorless mana, or we can pay 1 life and tap for blue mana, or we can pay 2 and tap it, sacrifice a desert. Target player puts the top 4 cards of his or her library into his or her graveyard. Keep in mind, Ipnu Rivulet can be done at any time. It's not just a sorcery kind of spell. It can be done during our opponent's turn, which is great for us. Moving on, we have some more cards like Field of Ruin here. So we have those really annoying flip lands from Rivals of Ixalan, as well as Ixalan itself. Field of Ruin is here to help deal with that. It's a land you can tap for colorless, or you can pay to sacrifice Field of Ruin, destroy target non-basic land an opponent controls. Each player shuffles his or her library for a basic land, puts it onto the battlefield, then shuffles his or her library. So this is also a decent way for us to actually kind of thin our deck a little bit by getting an untapped blue mana. So we can use Field of Ruin, destroy a flipped Search for Azcanta or a Legion's Landing, something like that, get a blue mana for us, and make sure we can actually kind of cast something else that turn. So I love Field of Ruin a lot in this deck for us. Next up for us, we have 2 Scavenger Grounds. So this is a mill deck. If an opponent has a lot of like, you know, kind of graveyard interaction stuff, we definitely don't want them to utilize them at all. Cards like Champion of Wits is what the cards I'm talking about here. Scavenger Grounds is here, can pay for 1 colorless mana. You can pay 2 and sacrifice a desert and tap it. Exile all cards from all graveyards. So Scavenger Grounds can be sacrificed either through Ipnu Rivulet or sacrificing itself. Either way, we want to make sure we can exile all cards from all graveyards. Next up for us, we have 1 of Arc of Vraska. This is a land with a Sin. So since we have the Slippery Scoundrel and a lot of enchantments and things like that, as well as creatures being able to go super wide, Arch of Vraska here is actually too good to pass up. It's a great card that can tap for colorless, but we can also pay 5 and tap it and draw a card. Activate this ability only if you have the City's Blessing, and that draw card can be used on our opponent's turn, which is really, really great. You'll notice that in game 1, there aren't that many like instant speed spells, so being able to use Arch of Vraska on our opponent's turn with our untapped mana is awesome. And the last 10 lands here is Island. So that brings us to 23 lands in total. And that is the game 1 matchup there. Let's go over the sideboard really quickly, just kind of show you the options that we have since this is a mono blue deck. First up here, we have 2 Unsummon. This is a blue mana instant, return target creature to its owner's hand. Very, very nice, very effective. Next up, we have 2 Aether Meltdown. This is a 2 mana enchantment aura, giving us the ability to kind of hopefully get ascended a little bit more quickly. It has flash, enchant creature or vehicle, and when Aether Meltdown enters the battlefield, we get 2 energy as well, which is great. And enchanted creature gets -4, -0. So if it's a very attack heavy creature like a Hazoret or maybe like a you know, a Rekindling Phoenix, something like that, Aether Meltdown is here to help deal with those. Next up for us, we have two Essence Scatter if we're up against a heavy like aggro or a heavy like creature-based strategy. Essence Scatter is here to hopefully slow that down a little bit. It's a 2-mana instant counter-target creature spell. Very simple, very straightforward, and very fun on the play. Next up, we have two Jace's Defeat. This is here for a Scarab God. This is here for a Torrential Gearhulk, things like that, just for 2 mana. It's an instant counter-target blue spell. If it was a Jace Planeswalker spell, scry 2. So we don't have to worry about Jace Planeswalkers at all right now because Jaces in Standard are pretty terrible, but Jace's Defeat is here to hopefully deal with a Scarab God, Torrential Gearhulk, anything like that we want to be dealing with as soon as possible. Next up, if we're up against maybe a white deck or a heavy removal deck, Negate is here to hopefully kind of combat that. This is a 2-mana instant counter-target non-creature spell. This is hopefully kind of slow down like a Cast Out, Ixalan's Binding, things like that can really muck up our board state and really shut us down and kind of slow us down to the point where we can't actually win the match. So Negate's coming in here in game 2 to hopefully kind of stop those kind of spells. Next up, we have 3 Supreme Will. This is a great card for us to kind of counter spells if we need to or if we can, but also a great way for us to kind of hunt through our deck for key cards like Curious Obsession, Navigator's Ruin, and Fraying Sanity to make sure we can get those onto the battlefield as soon as possible so that we can actually kind of, prioritize our attack strategy. Supreme Will is in here for that particularly, but also giving us flexibility to be able to counter some spells as well. And the last card in the sideboard here is one more, River's Rebuke. I did put one in the main board and one in the sideboard just in case we're up against an extra heavy aggro opponent. This is a 6-mana sorcery. Return all non-land permanents target player controls to their owner's hand. Again, it's in here in the sideboard just to make sure that we can get another kind of like River's Rebuke in the main board just in case we run up against a really heavy aggro or a really heavy like permanent wide deck. Really good here. Like it a lot. But let me know as far as River's Rebuke. But if you're not wild about River's Rebuke, you could always use something like maybe Baral's Expertise. I thought about that as well. Another great card to be able to bounce some creatures. I did like Rebuke a bit more because it is non-land permanent instead of just creatures and our artifacts, and that is why there's a second one in the sideboard. But let's go to the full layout here. On MTG Traders, the actual price is coming to a ridiculously low 12 tickets. Again, mill is really not that like sought after right now, so there are a lot of pieces that really just aren't kind of used a lot at all. And in paper, if you want to buy this in paper, it's only 40 bucks as well. So super cheap, super low to the ground, super fast, and super fun. This was a super fun deck to build, and I loved doing it. But of course, guys, let me know what you think. Do you like it? Do you hate it? Do you have any suggestions for it? Please leave them in the comments down below. I kind of spent a long time trying to build this deck. I really wanted mill to work again for me because I love milling in Standard, and aggro mill here is just a really fun way to do it because you can actually win the game by just having unblockable creatures, but also you can just mill your opponent out, which is great. But that's gonna do it for the video today, guys. I really appreciate it. Like the video if you liked it, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.